Hello and welcome to episode number 4 of the Wise Guys podcast. My name is John Tortorelli with Brennan Capizzello and Justin Ray. Today is a free agency preview the morning of the start of free agency. It starts tonight, but really it started a few days ago because there's this thing called tampering that no team would ever dare to do. So in today's episode, we're going to discuss the Dejounte Murray trade to the Atlanta Hawks. Dive right into that. The Knicks basically being certain to sign Jalen Brunson to a big bag, little free agency preview, and our favorite offseason moves with a little trivia at the end. And yesterday, I was editing some TikToks, and I look at my phone. One of my friends, Romain, he texts me, does Atlanta have the best backcourt in the Eastern Conference now? I was like, I instant notification, like, let me guess. I was like, don't say it. I'm like, they traded for Dejounte. And before I could even send the text, he texted to me out of excitement. I was like, screw you, I want to guess. But anyways, we knew what was going to happen. For days, it was rumored that Dejounte was on the trade block because in San Antonio, they won 40 or 34 games this last season. And after trading Kawhi Leonard, they were headed down a deep, dark path. That being the scariest place in basketball, it's called purgatory. And as fans, it's enjoyable. It's fun to watch a young star that's homegrown, a guy that you can root for because he doesn't have any of the drama. He's just going to put his head down and work. And he's going to get better and better each and every single season. Dejounte Murray did that for San Antonio. Better yet, he tore his ACL in his third season. He comes back. He's not only making all defensive teams, he's becoming an all-star. And I don't think many people are watching San Antonio, but he was putting up almost a 20-point triple-double, which is insane for a 25-year-old guard. But like I said, that was good enough for 34 games, or 34 wins. And you look at the ceiling with Dejounte as number one, it's low. It's not very high. And for Atlanta, they saw the opportunity to get Trae Young the proper backcourt complement that most notably can defend at an elite level. Because I think you guys would agree, Trae Young, he doesn't always get targeted defensively. Shout out to your Knicks. But when it comes to effort and athletic limitations, he's at the very top of the league among the worst defenders at his position. And so I want to ask you guys, does Atlanta now have the best backcourt in the league without even seeing them play a single game yet? And if it's not, is it the best backcourt in the Eastern Conference? Justin, I want to know your take because you probably feel a certain way about Trae.
In the league, I'd say no, because I would go all the way down to Phoenix. I got too much respect for CP3 and Devin Booker. They've made the NBA Finals. You got to give them the love. Or you could go in the Eastern Conference. You might even go with Drew Holiday and Chris Middleton. A couple of champions right there. So it's tough for me to give them that notch when we haven't even seen them play together. It should be magical, man. Murray is awesome to watch, and pair him up with Trae Young. I mean, I don't want to see Trae Young do this stuff in the Garden, but outside of that, I do think they're going to be a very lethal duo. But best in the conference, best in the league, not yet. You got to show me something first. Talk to me, Brandon.
Well, yeah, I think you left out actually the best backcourt in the NBA, and that's the Golden State Warriors with Steph and Klay. I mean, them winning the championship kind of revalidates that for everybody to see. So yeah, I don't think they're the best backcourt in the NBA. I don't think they're the best backcourt in the Eastern Conference either.
Brandon,
go ahead.
So you're a big Klay Thompson guy.
Yeah,
I think that's awesome. I also think Klay Thompson is one of the most overrated players in the NBA, and it's not because of the injuries. When we're going to talk about what we saw this last year in the finals, he was, for the most part, not one of the Warriors' 3 best players. He was their 4th or their 5th. Obviously, you got Steph and Draymond. Draymond is better and more valuable to the Warriors, has been, than Klay throughout their entire iteration of their dynasty. I think you would disagree. I think you had something to say about that, wouldn't you?
I 100% have something to say about that, and I really wish that this was the notebook that I actually wrote down my arguments, because we've had this argument before about over a year ago. I'm really mad that this isn't the notebook.
I can tell you why.
You can tell me why, but I can't. I don't have.
We all say Klay Thompson is the second best.
Hold on. I have numbers and I have records to prove that otherwise of what you just time out. And you just said about Klay Thompson being overrated and not being as valuable to the Golden State Warriors as other people on that team. That's disrespectful. That's blasphemy for a guy who, when last seen healthy, was arguably top 3, top 2 two-way players in the NBA. No.
Okay, so you can pull up while I'm giving this take. Shooting is a very additive skill, and it's necessary to win a title. But in order to amplify shooting and shot making, you need playmaking. You throw Klay in Sacramento, they're not a playoff team. Any of those years. Maybe with DeMarcus Cousins, they could have certainly, just to have that offensive threat and his defensive ability, pretty good defender, not an elite one. But you look at what Draymond Green provides as an all-around defensive player, a playmaker, and a distributor that has the telepathy with the Splash Brothers. He offensively was just as necessary because you need that playmaking that allows Klay and Steph to play off ball. Came in the fourth quarter saying the other day, everyone wants to shoot like Steph. Not everyone wants to move around like him. What enables Steph to play off ball, and the same thing with Klay Thompson, is Draymond. He can take the ball up the floor, and he's one of the greatest playmaking bigs of all time. Great passer. He has some really bad turnovers. That's something you can't deny, but all those Warriors guys do. That, fortunately, with the barrage of their three-point shooting, is certainly a less significant component of their offense. The bad turnovers we saw in the Boston series. They had more than enough offensive firepower. But when looking at Klay, he was never more vital to those teams than Draymond just because of his impact on both ends that allowed Klay to do what he does best. And if you put him in a situation where he doesn't have that playmaker, there was more load and tension on him to create offense off the dribble. And his biggest weakness coming to the draft, everyone knew, was his off the dribble game. It's not that he doesn't dribble because he doesn't want to. It's because he can't. We saw in the finals when he was putting the ball on the floor and trying to attack from mid-range, it was ugly. It was really bad. It was getting to the point Otto Porter Jr. was outplaying him. And I'm not trying to disrespect Klay Thompson because he's one of my favorite players of all time. But I've heard you say, Brandon, correct me if I'm wrong, that Klay Thompson is easily a top 15 player at his peak and maybe even top 10.
Yeah. Easily.
Klay Thompson was a top 10 player in 2016 because Draymond those years was better than him. Steph was better than him. Kevin Durant was better than him. 3 of his teammates were better than him.
Draymond was not better than Klay Thompson.
I wouldn't say Draymond.
Yes, I would. When he was making shots from 3 as well with his playmaking.
I think you're undervaluing Klay Thompson as the second greatest three-point shooter of all time.
Is that even true? How certain are we about that?
I'm 100% certain. And I'm actually kind of I'm kind of a little offended that you came at me without me being prepared. You knew it. If I had my freaking notebook from last year that had these, I would be blasting you away. I don't have them off the top of my head. Listen, you're undervaluing Klay Thompson as a two-way player who was basically in the Golden State Warriors prime. He was guarding the best players, and he was giving you 20, 25 a night. Klay Thompson, he also, I think you forget that it's the Splash Bros. There's an S there for a reason, and that's because it's Klay Thompson. Without Klay Thompson, the Golden State Warriors don't do what they've done. All right, and I'm going to bring it to, it's a team effort. I'm not going to overvalue or undervalue. I think it works because they're all together. Those 3 were all together. Because I don't think they could have did it without Steph. I don't think they could have did it without Klay, and I don't think they could have did it without Draymond. So I think they all mesh perfectly together. I think you're being highly, highly disrespectful to Klay Thompson.
To be sure, Klay Thompson's a Hall of Fame player. He's irrefutably one of the 3 or 4 greatest shooters of all time. And they don't have the success they've had without Klay. I'm not saying that. And for people to say, oh, I think he's overrated, they may take it as, oh, he's just like not an NBA legend or Hall of Famer. He certainly is. What I'm saying is you can't replace what Draymond Green does at any level. With Klay Thompson, you can get 70% of that shooting value from a dunk.
You can replace Draymond.
No, you can't. Absolutely not. He is the best defensive player since Tim Duncan. And name me how many bigs you can pass.
The best defensive player since Tim Duncan? Have you forget the guy that named Kawhi Leonard, the Claw?
A defensive big man is way more valuable than a defensive wing because that's the backbone of your unit.
Kawhi can guard 1 through 5 if necessary.
He's not guarding centers, dude.
He's taller than Draymond Green. He's got a longer wingspan.
No, he doesn't.
Yes, he does.
Draymond's got 7'3" wingspan, dude. They both got great wingspans, and I doubt Kawhi's is beyond 7'3". Here's my take. Kawhi is the best perimeter defender I've seen in my time as an NBA fan at his peak. But when we look at the longevity of defense and also the
Kawhi's wingspan 7'3".
Thank you. So it's similar, but he's also got those ginormous ass hands. So they call him the claw.
That's why people always would draw the MJ comparisons. When your hands are that damn big, it allows you to do so much finishing around the rim and shooting. So you're all right.
But also defensively. But also, hold on, time out. Because you said he's the best wing you've seen in your lifetime. And then you were about to get into the point of longevity where I think you're about to say that he's trailed off defensively. He's not what he used to be.
He defensively. Have the energy. He as a 25
I don't think
to 28
that's
per game
necessarily true. I don't think that's necessarily true. Because when last seen, he's very much copied what LeBron has started to do later in his career, which is in the regular season, he's going to give you basically 50 to 70%. He's not
selective.
But in the playoffs, he's down and dirty and he's ready to go. When Luka was cooking everybody on that team, from Marcus Morris Sr. to Paul George to whoever, Kawhi Leonard stepped up and look at the numbers. The numbers went down when Kawhi stepped face-to-face with Luka Doncic. He still has the defensive capability to basically slow down, because you're not going to shut down these great players. Maybe you'll get one game where you have them have a terrible game, but over a 7-game series, they're going to get theirs. You got to more look at their turnovers, their bad mistakes, and their field goal percentage. That really shows what the great defenders are doing. So look at that. He just showed you when last healthy that he was guarding who you think is a top 5 player in the NBA, and Luka Doncic. So how can you tell me? And I just witnessed Draymond Green in the finals, pretty much. I don't want to say on a consistent basis, but Jalen Brown was getting the best of him for a lot of that series.
That was really only one game.
I don't believe that.
I mean,
that's not what I saw.
Draymond talked about on his podcast. He started forcing those guys left. They were turning the ball left and right. They don't have the handles.
Yeah, no, he was, but he was also cashing on shots and driving right into Draymond.
And that worked for Jalen in one game. I think first off, to correct myself, I didn't have the exact numbers. Draymond has a 7'1" wingspan. Kawhi has a 7'3" one. So I was incorrect on that.
And he's taller.
I mean, he's like an inch taller.
Yeah, that's still taller.
But
you know,
watching the two of them play, Kawhi's not guarding the post. At his peak, he's guarding on the perimeter. Whether or not he can do that, that was not his responsibility for San Antonio. When he got to Toronto and he was starting to have the low management stuff, that was where defensively he was able to take a step back with the.
I'm not saying that he's going to do it on a consistent basis, but I'm saying I'm saying if the coach says, "Yo, Kawhi, we need you to guard the big man in the post because our guys are getting cooked," he's going to go do it just like LeBron did it. Has been doing it.
Well, he can do it. His body's not the same way as LeBron. We saw.
Yes, you don't have the faith in Kawhi Leonard. It's not always about physicality in that. It's also about technique, and he's got one of the greatest techniques because he's fundamentally sound.
His body can't handle for over 60 games that offensive load and then the defensive responsibility.
I'm not saying that. We just agreed on that. That's not what I'm saying, that he is selected. I'm saying when the coach says for that game in the playoffs, "Yo, Kawhi, I need you," he's going to do it.
Kawhi healthy is easily a top 3 player in the league. I don't think.
But we have to take into account he's only going to play 60 games in the regular season.
Oh, you're right. Yeah.
We live in reality, and the reality is he's playing 55 to 60. And in the postseason, he can only do so much before he pushes his body past the limit and he gets injured. We've seen that several times in Toronto or in San Antonio.
No, you can't. No.
And then again, with the ACL.
Say that he did it in LA. That happened. That was an injury. Toronto, he might have got nicked up, but he still continued to play.
I meant his last year in San Antonio leading.
All right, but that wasn't his body giving up on him. That was Zaza for cheap shot, freaking going underneath his foot.
He wasn't out with that ankle injury, dude.
Huh?
He was not out for 70 games the following season for that ankle injury. That happened in the 2017 playoffs.
Yeah, that's what kept him out for the next season.
No, it was not.
Yes, it was.
An ankle injury. Brandon.
John,
you're not missing that much time with an ankle.
It wasn't an ankle injury. He said that he started feeling pain in his thigh.
Yeah, that injury came after.
No, it didn't. Time out. they won 60 games that season, and then they had KD and the Golden State and Steph and the Golden State Warriors. They were about to beat them in game one. They were up like 27 points with Kawhi Leonard going off, and then Zaza went underneath them, and that's the last time we saw Kawhi in San Antonio, except for I think the 5 games he played in the next season, and then he got traded to Toronto.
I'm just trying to tell you, the ankle and the quadriceps are 2 different parts of your body. That's all.
I know they're 2 different parts, but the Zaza, that's what caused the injury.
Brandon, all 3 of us are medical amateurs, so we're not going to pretend we are not. We don't know. You don't know. I don't know, and Justin does not know. That's not.
I do know because I remember.
Neither here nor there.
I remember the injury being covered.
It's neither here nor there. All I was getting at is Draymond Green, with what he can do as a help defender, that is more valuable. It simply is, because Kawhi, he can't protect the rim, and if his teammates are getting blown by off the dribble, there's no rim protection there. It doesn't really add up to the same level as Draymond as a cumulative all-around defender. That was my take. And for Klay Thompson, I don't want to skedaddle around that. Again, Hall of Fame player, but to say he's just instantaneously the second greatest shooter of all time downplays how special Ray Allen and Reggie Miller were, because they never played with a playmaker like Steph Curry and Draymond Green. Klay Thompson, his entire career, his entire peak, got the benefit off of the greatest playmaking guards as Magic Johnson and one of the greatest playmaking forwards. And that is what basically hides his limitations as a ball handler. When Draymond was out for 2 months this season, Klay Thompson struggled. Steph significantly, and I mean significantly, dropped off from production that time. And defensively, the defense was not the same.
You're being blasphemy. You're taking away what Klay Thompson's done because of the players he played with. You cannot do that. You can't take away just because that they played with certain players.
But it's important we mention that. I'm not taking away nothing from Klay. He's an amazing shooter and one of the best defensive wings of the last, or guards, because he can guard guards very well, of the last decade. But it's important we mention these things because we never talk about them. And it's weird how we never do, because if you're not a very good ball handler, as we saw in the finals without specifically Draymond in the regular season, when he was asked to create off the dribble, it wasn't good. And sure, he's coming off the torn ACL, but we're seeing his limitations
and Achilles
as a self-creator. But we've seen he's limited as a self-creator, and if you put him in just about any other team, he's not going to be that same player. The question I have is, what if you were to put Reggie Jackson or Reggie Miller with that level of playmaking? It's just a thought, and I think to just completely downvote the other elite historical shooters.
I'm not downvoting. I'm not downgrading them. I'm upgrading Klay because of what I've seen him do. Look at the numbers he's put up.
We've seen he's when he gets hot. I mean, it's scary stuff.
I think it's just fair to say he's a top 5, one of the top 5 greatest shooters of all time. Let's end it there. No more. We could talk about Klay.
We're gonna get into this in another episode. We're gonna get into this in another episode when I'm prepared and I have my notes. And John doesn't come at me blind.
Is it the amount of 3-point games he has with under?
No, it's not that. It's not that. It's records and stuff like that to show that Klay Thompson is actually more important than you're leading on.
Records are nice, but you're going to provide no context with those. So how much you're really telling me? Like I was saying before, with all he had around him, that only helped him as a player.
No, these are records. These are records that without him on the floor, these records happened. This is their winning percentage without Klay Thompson. This is their winning percentage with Klay Thompson.
Can I just make one point? I just want to make one point.
Sure.
Kevin Durant was on the Warriors. If you take Klay Thompson off that team, they can still win multiple championships, I believe.
Yeah, it's not changing a whole lot if Klay's not on that team. Obviously, you're missing an all-star. Yes, we're not denying the fact losing Klay Thompson would negatively impact that Warriors team. But if you take them off, they're still the front runner with Steph, Klay, and Draymond.
KD.
Do you disagree? Steph, Klay, KD, and Draymond, they're still the front runner. Do you disagree with that?
Yeah.
What? Cleveland? Without Kyrie, that team's better? San Antonio? With just Kawhi and Marcus Aldridge?
Yeah, no, I would have taken Kawhi and the Spurs on that because I picked them to win that series back when it was KD, Klay, Steph, and Draymond. I picked San Antonio to beat them. And guess what? They were on their way to doing that. They're about to blow them out in game one in the Oracle with that big four. They were about to get blown out.
And they beat him in the season open, too, behind Jonathan Simmons' breakout performance. He had the chase down block and Steph Curry. I don't know if you guys remember that.
Yeah.
Like I said, the Warriors this last season with Draymond Green, they were a completely different team. And I mean, to just say that, like, we're going to downvote him, like, they were 19-17 without him this last year, just 500. And with him, they were on a historical start. So, I mean, I'm just saying, man.
I'm not the one discrediting it, but I'm not the one discrediting anybody. I'm giving him all the credit. You're the one discrediting Klay Thompson's efforts into this.
I'm arguing Draymond Green is more important to those Warriors teams. That's my argument.
And my argument is that they're all equally important to the team.
But you're saying Klay ranked higher. You're saying Klay was better.
Yeah, Klay was better, but I'm not saying he was more. I'm not saying they were all not important to the team. They were all important.
Okay, that's very fair.
It's kind of like the Tom Brady-Belichick debate. You can't have one without the other.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
And if we do get into that one day, I don't know. I have a different opinion than a lot of people on that one.
Yeah,
I'm looking forward to that.
Like we touched on before, Trae Young, and when it comes to off-ball movement, I want to wrap it back around for a few minutes to Atlanta. Trae Young has been the heliocentric creator for the Hawks for the last 3 years. He is their offense since he came into the league. And now he's going to be asked to play off the ball, off of Dejounte Murray, because in San Antonio, he had one of the higher usage rates among the lead guards in the game. And I want to ask you guys, are the Hawks contenders now with Trae Young having to implement a new style into his game that he has not been able to show at all so far in the NBA? Because the ball's always in his hands. And now it's being taken out to go to Dejounte. And when Dejounte's playing off his Trae, he's not a very good three-point shooter. When it comes to wide open looks, he shot 38% this last season on just 1 attempt a game. But on open looks, Dejounte, on 2 attempts a game, was shooting just below 33%. So he's not exactly a potent shot maker off the ball. So I want to ask you guys, with that backcourt, is Atlanta a contender in the Eastern Conference?
I don't think so. I'm not there yet. I think the East is very loaded right now. They regressed a ton this past season. You know, you go from playing in a conference championship, a conference finals, and they come out this year looking just as bad as the Knicks. So that was a team that came into the season with high expectations, and they completely let everybody down. I don't think they're there yet. Sure, this backcourt makes them a little bit better. Maybe this actually just alleviates some stress off of Trae Young, and he can play off ball. I think he'll be able to. And this might work out, but I don't think they're good enough to contend in the East with the bad boys like the Bucks. If Brooklyn comes back with Kyrie and KD, and who knows what else they're going to add, I don't think they're there just yet. Maybe 1 or 2 pieces away, but I can't look at Atlanta today and say, yeah, this is a title contender. You got to show me a little bit of consistency first.
You want to go, John? Or you want me to go?
I want to ask you, with Kyle Lowry's regression, Brandon, do you still have Miami as the better team relative to the Hawks?
Oh, yeah, 100%.
With this existing roster, if they do trade for a certain player, that may be a pretty big name.
It's not even a question in my mind.
Not even a question. The one interesting, you want to dive in a little bit deeper? I have a trade idea I want to bounce off you guys and see what you think for the Hawks to take to the next. Do you want to hear it?
Mm-hmm.
No, quick question. I want to throw out some teams at you guys, and you tell me, and going into next season, are the Hawks better?
Yeah.
Boston.
Oh, yeah, Boston's better.
Milwaukee. Philly. Assuming James Harden comes back.
Yeah, I'm under that impression. Yeah,
okay. Miami. Chicago.
Atlanta.
Oh, they're kind of.
Lonzo Ball. I don't know if Lonzo's going to be healthy, what he's going to be, if Vooch's going to be back.
I give it.
John Collins going to be back.
I give it. In my opinion,
I'm switching to Chicago.
Chicago? What about you, Brandon? You say Chicago?
Even. They're even.
And then Brooklyn.
Atlanta.
With Kyrie and KD on the floor.
Yeah.
Brooklyn.
Last one, Toronto.
I'll give it to Atlanta.
Toronto.
Toronto. You see, there's so many teams that most of you guys picked over Atlanta. I mean, I could have kept going. I could have even went to Cleveland. I think Cleveland might have such a good young core that they might go over Atlanta. And I'd say I'm not gonna say my Knicks, so I'm just gonna keep my mouth shut.
I mean, the Cavs have 3 low-end all-stars. Now they're adding some other pieces to surround those guys. So the
Yeah.
trade idea, it's to send. Let me know what you think. Between the Pacers and the Hawks, the Pacers are trying to rebuild. John Collins wants touches. The reports say his relationship with the Hawks is beyond repair. So now you got into Dejounte Murray. John Collins ain't getting the ball no more. They get even less, and he's really just going to be an off-ball piece that's going to kind of get some points and rebounds off of their 2 lead guards now. So the idea is you send John Collins to Indiana to play with Tyrese Halliburton with Bogdanovich. Keep in mind, Bogdan's only been in the league for 5-6 years, but he's already 30 years old because he spent 4 years, I believe, playing overseas before he came to the NBA. So the Pacers get another shooter. In theory, they can move one of him or Buddy Hield to a contender, or a contender like the Lakers that need some shooting. And then for the Hawks, they get Miles Turner and Malcolm Brogdon. And then what they'll do is that would make Clint Capella a little bit more expendable, so they can move him to a team in need of a center, maybe a Portland. And the focal point of this move is you get Miles Turner to play with Trey, his shooting, his rim protection. He's younger than Capella, who already started to regress last season. And Malcolm Brogdon, who's injury prone, but he's going to come off the bench for 27 minutes with Kevin Huerter and their first round draft pick from Duke and AJ Griffin. And you're going to have Malcolm playing a similar role to what he was in Milwaukee. What do you guys think of that?
See, I don't think that the Pacers would do it, because I don't think they want to give up 2 of their more valuable players.
Even if they're on the trade block?
No. I believe they'll probably be traded. I don't think they want to give them up just for John Collins and then Bogdanovich. I think they would obviously want like a draft picks. Yeah, I don't see the pick. I mean, it could be sweetened a little bit on the Atlanta Hawks side, is what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
I can say the same thing. I feel like Miles Turner and Brogdon are valuable pieces to the Pacers starting rotation at that. And then you're going to John Collins, a sensitive John Collins who isn't getting enough touches, and then Bogdanovich, who occasionally was playing off the bench and starting. No, I think you have more valuable pieces on the Indiana side. So I don't think they go and trade that.
I should mention John's only 24, and he's a 20-10 guy. And they're rare at that age.
Yeah.
So for me, maybe the Hawks have to throw in a little bit more. They're not trading DeAndre Hunter. I think his trade value is so low through all the injuries, it's not worth throwing him into a trade. You try to hash a little bit more out of him, though I'm not very high on DeAndre. I think they keep AJ Griffin. He was an absolute steal in the NBA draft and a pick number 16. I mean, he should have been a top 8 or 9 pick. And the fact the Hawks got him outside the lottery, an elite shooter that I was telling Brandon before, he moves a little bit like Jimmy Butler side to side, and he has potential as an 18-year-old to grow into like a legitimate top wing in the league. I don't think he would be in that deal either. So for the Hawks, there are only young players left to move are Onyeka Okongwu, who to me is an awesome backup big that could start next to Miles Turner. You have Turner at the 4 and Okongwu at the 5. Okongwu reminds me of like Robert Williams. I would not want to attach a mini Robert Williams into that Indiana deal if I were the Hawks. What do you guys? Because Onyeka to me is going to be like a top 15 center in a few years. Would you move him in that?
Yeah.
To get Turner?
I mean, I don't think that again, I don't think the Pacers would do that. I think the Pacers well, are you saying add him to the trade for the Hawks?
You add Okongwu in with John Collins and Bogdan, because Bogdan, like I said, you can reroute him the same way you can a Buddy Hield for a first, maybe.
I feel like the Pacers are looking at it like to like look at San Antonio, look at New York. They've got all these picks, and I think that's what the Pacers are kind of eyeing. I think the picks are the value.
So I mean, the Hawks, they got a pick from the Knicks that meant almost nothing for Cam Reddish. I feel like a lot of time picks they're viewed as assets, but a lot of times.
No, I 100% agree. I just think teams, especially the Pacers, are going to look at it like, I mean, why would we? I just think
why would we not want to pick in return? You can throw in definitely.
Yeah, they just want to build more to the future.
Yeah, I mean, the Hawks already gave up 3 unprotected picks. They may as well just give up their 2028 pick swap, because the scary thing about the Dejounte Murray trade is what San Antonio is now going to do. When they traded Derek White to Boston, in February or it was March. Brad Stevens gave up a 2028 pick swap with just a top 1 protection. Now, it's 6 years from now. Anything can happen. What if Tatum gets injured that year and they miss the playoffs? And that ends up being a top 5 or top 7 pick. So the Spurs have that asset. And then this Dejounte Murray trade, Pop and the guys got 3 unprotected picks, a 2026 pick swap, a 2025 first, and a 2027 first to go along with the Hornets' first round pick next year. So now, within the next 5 years, San Antonio has 4 picks with no protections from other playoff teams, and one of those very potentially could be a year where maybe Trae Young misses time or Jason Tatum doesn't miss the playoffs. And that, to me, with the Spurs embracing a full-on rebuild where they can be bad enough to get top 5 pick, an upcoming draft class that has almost a Rudy Gobert offensive skill, and Victor Wembanyama and Scoot Henderson, one of the top point guard prospects of the last decade, this upcoming draft in 2023 is going to be scary. So the Spurs, they have built a very promising young core with surrounding red chips. Now they're just a blue chip away from really growing into a deadly or dangerous is probably a better use of words, a dangerous team in the Western Conference with the selections of Devin Vassell, Keldon Johnson, very good wings with athleticism and shooting. And I think for San Antonio to embrace fully being bad for a year, much like they did to get Tim Duncan, that is the way. In the post-Pop era, this team is going to be set up to go back for titles. And that horrifies me. The pick swaps years from now, the ability to be bad for a year, and you have all the surrounding pieces. They took Jeremy Shohan in the draft, Malachi Branham, Blake Wesley. They got one of my favorite undrafted players in Dominic Barlow out of New Jersey. They're adding all of these pieces in the draft, and there was a logjam in the backcourt. That's free without Dejounte. You send him to a team that could use him. I'm looking at San Antonio and saying to myself, who knows what these picks can end up being? It's a little bit scary. They have like 5 or 6 opportunities to get themselves a franchise player now. And for me, I absolutely love this trade for them. I would argue they get more value out of the Dejounte Murray trade. And if I had to pick right now, I'd say they're the team that's going to benefit more from making this deal 3 years from now.
I don't know. I think maybe I would say it was more of a win-win trade because I think Atlanta accomplished what they wanted to accomplish, which is they're in a win-now mode. And so that's why they're going straight. They're trading away the assets to get the player who's ready now. And I think San Antonio accomplished what they want to accomplish, which is let's get some assets for the future so we can start building through the draft like they've done, like they did 20 plus years ago. Mm-hmm. So on San Antonio's side, I think it's pretty clear they're in full rebuild mode. I think the one difference from back in, I believe it was 98 when they had a bad season, and then 99 they drafted Tim Duncan. I think I got that right. Is that they don't have David Robinson on the court. For when Tim Duncan came in, they had basically the Twin Towers ready to go. So that's the interesting thing. They traded their best player away, and so now it's a bunch of young guys. So I mean, we'll see. I don't really listen. The West is stacked. It's been stacked for, I mean, count the years. So I don't really know that. I mean, this is like talking deep into the future, like the next 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years. Like, so I don't know because I don't even know these players that are coming up that are probably in freaking freshman year or sophomore year of high school. Yeah. They're gonna be playing for the San Antonio Spurs. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. Maybe we'll see. We'll see. I don't think Pop's going to be there. So that's going to be an interesting transition. Who replaces him? I think Ime Udoka was going to probably take the reins, but
yeah, he left to go to Philly and Brooklyn for a year individually. A lot of coaches are going to want that job, man. All of them.
I have to agree with Brandon, though. I do think the trade's a win-win for a team like San Antonio, especially if they see themselves going all full-blown out rebuild, acquiring all those picks. Those are really assets for the future, whether that be trade bait or maybe you find a gem in the draft or a diamond in the rough late in the draft. Those are unprotected picks. This is gold right now for them. So
I would agree with that as well. Justin, speaking of win-win scenarios, your New York Knicks are keying in, or for better usage of words. They had their sights set fully on Jalen Brunson for a 4-year, $110 million contract. Yesterday, as an extension to their draft day trade where they moved their 11th pick for 3 future highly protected firsts, they sent Alec Burks, coming off foot surgery for a second time, I believe, and Nerlens Noel, who played 25 games last season, very little, to Detroit to clear up some cap space for Jalen. And, they've hired his dad as a head coach. He's very close with Leon Rose, the GM. I want to know, as a New York Knicks fan, what is the state of the franchise? Because to me, they're very much down bad.
Okay. All right. So let me just first off, I want to talk about Alec Burks and show him a little bit of love. I feel like last season we didn't get to see the version of him that we saw just 2 seasons ago because he was being forced to play point guard, and it was a totally different ball game for him. Instead of him just being able to relax and shoot his threes and make his buckets like he was the season before, he was thrusted into a position that he's not used to. So Alec Burks, we're gonna miss you, man. I wish that we could have had him back as just a 2 guard off the bench instead of having to run the point, but it's a gem for the Pistons out there. But on our side, I like how you said we're down bad because I kind of think it's the opposite. It's very weird to say that because we had a year where we were just playing in the playoffs and then came in with high expectations and then barely got, we were at 37 wins this past season. So it's very tough for people to hear what I'm saying and be like, oh, there's positives in this. Yeah, there is. Because as I mentioned to you guys before, I believe IQ really stepped up at the end of the season. We finally got some more clarity on what he may become for us. He may be our starting point guard going into next season. Or if we do sign Jalen Brunson, he might be thrusted into a different position. He'll be the 6th man. He'll be getting way more minutes. And finally, we know how to utilize him even better. I love Obi Toppin. I mean, the guy just had like a 40-point game before the end of the season. Like, who would have thought that was the Obi we were getting after his first season? You would have had no idea.
Well, we've seen that from a lot of young players too at the Team 82 version.
Well, listen, Obi Toppin actually showed a lot of promise, whether it be defensively. He plays with this up-tempo style of play that, it just injects so much energy when he's on the floor. And I would love to see him develop and get more minutes. I'm quite frankly, I do think Julius Randle's kind of like blocking his potential at the moment, but we'll see. But I do think the Knicks have a lot of talented young players at the moment. RJ, we're going to give him the keys to the kingdom. This is your garden now. Take over. Julius Randle will take the step back. Who knows if he'll be here next year. Quentin Grimes, God willing, he's healthy. Plug him into the starting lineup. He'll get 30 minutes a game. I think the Knicks are in, I'd say, a decent position. I don't think we're as bad as people say. If we acquire Jalen Brunson, listen, I wasn't all for it in the beginning, but I just got to hop on the train and just support my guys. I do think that he's better than what we did have. So,
for sure.
So at least we're improving in some aspect. It's going to cost us a lot of money. He'll be a top 14 paid point guard, if I'm not mistaken. And he's maybe like the 17th or 18th best. So I don't think the contract's nearly as bad because I feel like everybody in the NBA is just getting overpaid. So maybe this works out. Maybe him playing without Luka. What, am I just like being naive, you think, Brandon?
No. I laugh because the only thing I agreed with you in that whole little thing you went on there is that the NBA players are overpaid. Everything before that was a bunch of baloney.
I don't think you probably watch the Knicks nearly as often, bro. You got to understand.
I don't. Yeah, because I don't want to associate myself with mediocrity. Okay, I'm not going to sit around and watch mediocrity on my TV when I can watch something that can make me laugh in a good way and not in a bad way. Listen, it's fine and dandy. We're going down the road again, all right, Justin. For God's sakes. If I have to keep doing this with both of you guys, where you got this false sense of hope in your teams instead of seeing it with reality, take the rose-colored glasses off. All right? No, your Knicks not doing nothing. Jalen Brunson's a fine player. He's an all-star caliber player.
Is he?
Probably more in the East than the West because the West is so loaded. But he's not. And this again, no disrespect. Because I don't want to sound disrespectful to these players. he's a fine young player. He's talented. He's not a number one. I don't think he's a number two. He's a really good number three, I think. So, go ahead.
You said he was young. He'll be 30 years old by the end of this contract. The Knicks are keen in on making
it. Oh, okay. I thought you said he was going to be 30 years old coming in the season. Okay, so
he's going to be turning 26.
26, 26. Okay, well, he's still young. He's about to enter the prime of his career. But yeah, I mean, come on, dude. What have the Knicks done? Like you got lulled into the full sense of reality a couple of years ago when you guys screaming, "We here, Knicks are coming." Hey, yo, Brooklyn, New York, stand up. New York, like, get out of here with that, all right? Come on. And this is coming from a guy who really liked Julius Randle coming out of the draft. I really think he's a solid player. He's not what everybody built him up to be, but he's a really good, solid player. You guys have some solid play. I'm going to finish up right here. You guys have some solid players, but you got nothing that's going to put you over to the top, especially and we laid out earlier. You laid the teams out earlier in the East. You're not doing nothing. This is a stars league. You're not doing nothing without the stars, and you guys just don't have the stars to compete with the other teams in the East.
But you know what we do have?
We
have assets, man. We do have
assets.
Yes, we do. We have tradable assets if we need to acquire a star.
Wait, time out. Lose the last three letters of that word, and that's what you got in your front office too.
John, 4 or 5 first-round picks coming up in the next draft. You said that this draft is supposed to be big time. Am I right?
Yes, it will be very good at the top.
Okay.
Certainly.
Those picks for the Knicks, you're telling me that's not a pot of gold?
I hate to be the bearer of bad news.
Potentially, because they are draft picks. You don't know what they're going to be, but it's potentially a big steal for us.
Yes, they are draft picks, but much like the Cam Reddish trade where the Knicks gave up a highly protected first-round pick to the Hawks, the 3 they acquired, one from Detroit, one from Dallas, and one from Washington, will A, be poor, or B, highly protected. So unless the Knicks next season are bad, really bad, to get a top 5 pick of their own,
just possible.
You won't see any of that. Here's my thing. It's the same position the Spurs were going to find themselves in. If you have the question I was going to ask you, Julius Randle in the team next year, will Julius Randle be back in New York, or will he be traded this summer? And if so, what team wants Julius? That's my thought. Justin, you're the Knicks fan. I have to ask you first. Yes or no?
What team wants Julius?
Would he be traded? And if so, what team?
First of all, I don't think he'll be traded. I think he's going to start the season with the team. First season was an amazing year, man. It was almost fluky, and second year proved that it was. But
well, we forgot the first year. It was also a turnover machine.
Yeah, he was a turnover machine, but I do believe he's not a bad player. I believe if he buys into the system, if he isn't playing on ball 24/7, that he can be a solid contributor to this team. I do think that he's an asset for us, not the one minus those 3 letters, bro. I'm sorry. But yeah, he's a legit asset for the team. I don't think the Knicks are as bad as people are putting us out to be. I do think RJ is going to take another step. And if you guys didn't see, I think I'm not the only one in this chat right now that can say that. RJ, after the second half of the season,
25 a game. Insane. Awesome. Game the foul line 8 times. Here's my gripe, Justin. If you keep Julius Randle, a guy that shot 30% last year on catch and shoot attempts, is he holding back the development of RJ because you want the ball in RJ's hands, but Julius needs it in his? He's not good playing without the ball, and you're giving him max money. Now you're adding Jalen Brunson, who also needs the ball in his hands because while he can play without the ball, he showed that with Luka. You're not paying him $27 million a year to play off of Julius Randle, who last season showed us was a fluky product of the 2021 season because he's not a 40% three-point shooter. He's not a 47% mid-range guy. He's not going to hit all those contested looks. And their defensive identity, which they lost when they lost Reggie Bullock and Alfred Payton, you're going to have to rebuild that while Tom Thibodeau's feeling a little hot in that seat. So that's my gripe, you know?
Listen, and I get that 100%. Like I said, I just don't think we're going to trade him. I'm not saying we shouldn't. That I think we should trade him. I just want to see Obi in that starting role and him take up 35 minutes a game. I would love to see it.
Or if they play together, if Tom Thibodeau would dare to deviate from a rim protector on the floor for once. So
yeah, God forbid. But God forbid he would play our young talent more than 5 minutes. I would love to see Cam Reddish play some ball, man. Like the chances us Knicks fans got to even watch him was very few. So I'm looking forward to seeing what we have this season. I'm not expecting us to be a playoff team. I'm not going to jump the gun and say we're going to be a top 7 seed. No, I'm not saying that. But I would love, I would love to see our team at least contend for the play-in tournament. I would love to see us fight and put together some really, really competitive games when we're going against Brooklyn or Milwaukee. And we've showed that we can at certain moments. And then certain moments we've absolutely imploded, which isn't fun. We'd have these nice first halves, and then that third quarter comes, and that was it.
I tweeted this the other day. I think for the Knicks just being starved of, high-level basketball, they're just looking for the relevancy and, like, the quality basketball. When they became a 4 seed, that was the talking point. And none of us were really looking at the fact that they were a game away from the play-in tournament almost if they actually were touched or scathed by COVID in the 2021 season. While the rest of the league was hammered by it, the Knicks were scotch-free. They brought in Julius, obviously went to his second season and improved a lot, and that was enough for their offense to be competent with a very good defense with Tibbs. And the days of the 4 seed idea and they can be better than that, we know they're gone, right? That was a fluky year, and that's okay to accept, but you look at the Knicks on the court and say to yourself, Emmanuel quickly had in terms of shooting, a slump in his sophomore year, but he's only 23 years old, and you can expect him to continue maturing as a lead guard. And at the very least, what is he, a rotation player off your bench? You got Quentin Grimes, who was awesome last season. You now get to build with him and RJ together on the wings. That's super fun and cool because Quentin, awesome defensive player at his hands, very good three-point shooter, and he's young too. And I haven't even mentioned Cam Reddish and Obi Toppin, who at the very least bring some vigor, off the bench. So there's things to root for. It's not just, Kristaps Porzingis, who all Knicks fans eventually hated by the time he was being traded, and then nothing else. There's more than just RJ to this young core. And I think for a fan, you can get excited by that. Some of those role players, they've done a very good job of playing.
I think you hit the nail right on the head. IQ, Quentin Grimes, RJ, Obi, Jericho, Cam Reddish. We have a lot of young players there that, you're just hoping that if Tibbs gives them all the minutes right there, you're not going out there hoping for 40, 50 wins. We just want to see some growth. We want to see some development. So then we can say going into the season after the next, hey, we got ourselves a nice little core right here. I think we're ready to contend. But we'll see. I've been let down many, many times in my Knicks fandom life. So
that's fascinating. Yeah, a little bit gullible of all the new point guard additions, D Rose, the Kemba, the Brunson, and it never actually sticks. And then we're on to the next guy. From Porzingis to Randall to who knows, maybe it's John Collins next at power forward. And we'll move on to the next. Move on to another 19-year-old that'll become a star, and the Knicks will move on from him for the next one. I digress.
Yeah, please.
I want to ask you guys, which team has better young core? Portland with Shaedon Sharpe, Anthony Simons, who broke out into a 23 point per game scorer last year without Dame. Nasir Little, who is a very athletic 3-and-D wing, and even Josh Hart's 27. I won't throw him in. But still, yet Sharpe, Simons, and Little versus RJ Barrett, Emmanuel, and all those other young guys talking about before. New York or Portland? Which one's got the better future with those young guys? And all those picks, too, both teams are going to have.
Brandon, I'll let you go.
Which one?
I don't really see it in any of them. Either of them.
Portland?
I don't. I'm going to be honest. I don't. I mean,
Shaedon Sharpe.
Shaedon Sharpe is unproven yet. We haven't seen him in the NBA, so we don't know how he's going to translate.
Anthony Simons was a star, though. You're not very high on him.
I'm not a star. That's a little. Let's take it easy on star.
He emerged into one of the best. He's only 22. He's been in the league for 4 years. Came in at 18. He emerged as one of the most exciting and electric guards last year.
All right, that's fine, but he's not a star yet. There's levels to this game, and he's not on that level yet.
Well, is Darius Garland a star? Because I think Anthony Simons is a step below what Darius Garland was in 2021 when he broke out into a legitimate.
No, Darius Garland's not a star.
Huh?
No.
Darius Garland, he was just averaging 23 and 7 to 9 assists in his third season. By the way, his first 2 years were ruined by COVID and all other protocol. He didn't have training camp in his second season, or he had a shortened one. He didn't have the summer league fully, and you're telling me he, with all those things, all the injuries, because the Cavaliers historically, and I mean historically, were suffering injuries throughout the entire year. He's not a star because he made an All-Star game in his third year.
He can be an all-star caliber player, but he's not.
He is.
I know. All right, but he's not a star.
An all-star is a star.
No, all-stars are not star. Oh, no.
A legitimate all-star, a real one, not like a Jeff T.
An all-star is below a star. All-star, star, and then superstars.
But Darius,
that's how it goes.
Already a legitimate all-star going to his fourth year. He's proven himself.
All right, he's an all-star, but he's not a star yet.
Okay, I can't get behind that philosophy, bro. Portland or Cleveland? Which one has the better future? Just say one.
I like Cleveland.
Wait, now you changed.
Oh, sorry, I made a mistake. Portland,
New York
or New York? Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't. I mean,
because Cleveland's got 3 low-end all-stars already. I think that'd be the easy choice between them and Portland.
I like the Knicks.
Yeah, I can't go against you, man. That's your team.
I can't. I'm gonna be honest. I can't give one because I don't really believe in either of the young cores right now.
Okay,
who would you pick? One or the other?
Wouldn't pick either of them.
Well, that's not how this works.
You have to pick one.
I know that's not how this works, but when you ask me the question, my mind straight goes to I don't believe in either of the teams.
Okay, so you don't. I believe very highly in Anthony Simons, and I think Shane Sharp's going to be really awesome if he hits the ceiling. And even if he hits his floor, I think there's so many physical tools for him to be a starting player. So I think Portland has the better young core. But
by how much?
I would say I would grade the Knicks young core 75.
Okay.
Because after RJ, there's no proven guy you can say, okay, he's going to be a star. With Cam Reddish, he's had 3 years now, and he hasn't put it all together yet. And until he does that, I don't feel confident in him really turning it around. Quinn Grimes is fine. I look at Portland, and I say Anthony Simons, he's on the level of an RJ as a young player. That's how good Simons is. And then with Sharp, he has more upside than any of those Knicks guys. And with the physical tools and the youth, he's only 19 years old. I think he and Nasir Little together, they put them a little bit over the top of the Knicks, so they have more depth with, you're talking about Obi and Emmanuel in that young core. So I would go with Portland because of the potential of stars. With Knicks, I feel like only got 1 star. So
okay, that's fair.
Yeah. So
I'll argue that.
Brandon, I'm gonna come back to you about a little off-season preview. You're a Miami Heat fan. Dwayne Wade's your favorite player of all time in the NBA. The Miami Heat are in a weird position. Last year, they spent a lot of money to go out and get Kyle Lowry, then signing PJ Tucker in the mid-level. And for the most part in the regular season, through injuries, PJ Tucker was having a career year offensively. It was an amazing fit for him. And Kyle Lowry was a very good playmaker, which threw Bam Adebayo being in the lineup made a big difference. We saw the development of Max Strus, Gabe Vincent, and Caleb Martin. My question for you is, after in the postseason falling 1 game short of the NBA Finals, Kyle Lowry was showing his age. What is next for Miami to finally get over the hump? Because they've been right there at the level of the Finals, but not quite enough for 2 years now, the last 3 seasons. Speak to me.
What do my Miami Heat got to do? Well, I've been streaming this from the mountaintops since the season ended. And it's I know there's a couple names out there. There's Bradley Beal rumors. Zach LaVine, I think, had a little link there for a second. I know the Kyrie KD rumors were out there. But the one that I instantly was like, yes, 1,000% yes, was Spider Donovan Mitchell. That kid is perfect for the Heat culture. I mean, when he was
he plays no defense though since Rick Pitino.
Well, all right, that can be fixed though, because I think first off he's got the insanely great athleticism,
long arms.
He's got all the physical tools. Now it's just the want to part of it. And I think in the Heat culture, with surrounded with guys, Jimmy Butler, Bam, Eric Spoelstra, and Pat Riley, the culture they set, I think he will buy into it, and I think he can be a solid defender.
That's fair.
But with Donovan Mitchell, it's just he's still a young player, but when he first came out, a lot of people likened him to Dwayne Wade. a young D Wade, undersized, with insane athleticism, a great burst. I would say he's probably a better shooter than Wade. I don't know about. I wouldn't say a better clutch shooter because Dwayne Wade's one of the greatest clutch shooters.
Definitely not, because he was one of the least clutch players this last
Yeah.
season.
Yeah. I mean, but he did. I mean, it wasn't really clutch, but he did have that really great battle. I think it was in the bubble with Jamal
Murray.
Jamal Murray was just insane.
They were kindly shot away.
Yeah. So that's the guy that I'm looking at, Donovan Mitchell. And I've tried to do the math with our contracts we have. And it just really doesn't add up well because, see, to get Mitchell, we'd have to give up Tyler Hero. All right, but first I want to say Bam and Jimmy are untouchables. They're not good. Pat and Eric are not trading him.
Sure.
So Hero's got to be a part of it. A lot of mention for Duncan Robinson being traded this offseason. To work, if you were going to do Hero and Robinson and some picks, the money doesn't add up, so we'd have to give up another player. And we don't have somebody making enough money to add into that role. So I'm not as smart as Pat Riley and Eric Spoelstra. I really hope that they can figure out the math, figure out the money situation, maybe get another team in to sweeten the pot or help out with the salary cap issues. We do have some exceptions. Maybe that can help out there. But yeah, I think Donovan Mitchell to Miami is a real possibility. I think we've been hinting at, or Pat's been hinting at a move for the last couple of years now, a big splash move. I think it's time to make it. I think the Kyle Lowry experiment was fine. We were number 1 in the East, obviously. We made it to the conference finals. We were John said 1 game away. We were one shot away from. We were about an inch or 2 inches away from being in the NBA finals.
If they were healthy, it wouldn't even have been a shot. They would have won that game in overtime if Jimmy could have gotten there. I think he just wanted to end that thing with the last shot and not go to overtime.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. So we're right there, man. I think. I mean, if Pat and Eric don't believe in Kyle Lowry as that guy, we're paying him a lot. Of $28 million is a lot of money. The guy's making as much money as Chris Paul. It's just Go ahead, John.
I want to ask you, why not throw, if Kyle Lowry's 36 and we're seeing the wear and tear, excuse me, and especially with soft tissue injuries, we saw Mike Conley, that stuff's nagging and it doesn't go away.
Yeah.
And you're looking, the Heat did not sign Kyle Lowry for the last 2 years of the deal. They signed him for this year and next year, or 2022 and 2023. But if you're saying yourself in 2023, he's going to be a shell of himself and he's going to be a 50, 55 games guy. What if you move him and Tyler Hero together with a few draft assets? Because this is Danny Ainge. He's not going to do a trade unless you're giving him more than adequate value. So you look at Miami, they've given up already a good amount of the first round picks. What if they throw Utah's way, their 2026 first, and maybe even their 2022, but they already used the 2022.
So John, just so you clarify, we have a 24 first round and a second round pick, a 25 first round pick, a 26 first round pick. We have no picks for this next year's draft.
So how about Tyler Hero, Kyle Lowry, a 2025 pick swap, and a 2026 first? Maybe you have to get in a third team where they can get a little bit more.
I think we're going to have to get in the third team because I'm going to be honest, I don't know if Utah would be willing to take Kyle Lowry. So maybe we could get a third team that would want Kyle Lowry. Maybe that wouldn't work. The Lakers are way too over the cap. But like some team out there that can compete for a championship.
Charlotte.
Charlotte.
Team a bunch of young assets.
I would say the championship. Yeah. Somebody that could take. Yeah, he could help guide LaMelo Ball a little bit.
We're gonna change gears, certainly, going to Dallas in the Western Conference to talk a little bit about the fallout of Jalen Brunson leaving. Now, it's not certain. There is still the chance Jalen Brunson maybe changes his mind, but from reports, in simple terms, he's going to New York. And for the Mavericks, they traded for Christian Wood 2 weeks ago. They get very little, 26 pick, and 3 guys who weren't playing, Boban, to acquire him. Is Dallas, after losing their secondary perimeter creator, they drafted Jaden Hardy, who was a bucket getter in the second round out of the G League. are they a top 4 team without Brunson in the Western Conference? Because I'm gonna throw some teams at you guys, Justin, kind of like you did with the Hawks. Now, name a Western Conference team. You tell me who's better between Dallas and them. Phoenix.
Phoenix.
I almost said Houston.
I know. I was like, are we gonna go through the whole conference from bottom to top?
Memphis. Golden State. Clippers. Lakers. Nuggets. I'll be honest with you guys, I disagree on the Lakers, to be quite honest, because the Mavericks have built an actual NBA team, and the Lakers have so many ifs, buts, hows, when. Anthony Davis' health, LeBron's age. I look at the Mavericks' overall cohesion of their defense. Jason Kidd, he is not a rookie head coach like Darvin Ham. And I say to myself, the Mavericks have bought in defensively, and they have the pieces surrounding Luka that LeBron doesn't have. So that's why I would actually have the Mavericks over the Lakers. The Lakers do just have the theory of what can be, because we've seen them at a championship.
Yeah, it's 100% a projection on my part for the Lakers, because that's considering AD is going to play a decent amount of games and he'll be healthy for the playoffs.
Mm-hmm. I got 3 more teams for y'all, by the way. Portland.
No, Mavericks.
Mavs.
Pelicans.
That's an interesting one there.
I still say Mavs. Pels are unproven.
They're unproven, but they've got the potential to be better than the Mavericks.
Last one, another unproven team. Minnesota.
I think the same thing applies to Minnesota that does New Orleans. I think they have the potential to have a better overall team than
that. I feel like Minnesota proved a lot this past season, and I feel like they're going to get better.
Here, actually, I don't mean to cut you off, but here's the thing that I should mention, because there's been a lot of reports about it over the last couple of weeks, ever since Mr. Patrick Beverley paid a visit to First Take and ESPN of Miami looking to get Pat Bev. Now that could be very, very interesting. Like if we there's a team that you could add as the third team to the Miami Jazz trade, add Minnesota, send Lowry to Minnesota, maybe. We get Pat Bev and Donovan Mitchell, because Pat Bev's making, I think, $10 million, so that would kind of replace the PJ Tucker
1 year.
year. And then we get Donovan Mitchell in. I think that could be a very interesting thing, because I think Pat Beverley is I think you both agree he's a perfect fit for the Heat culture. Like he could be easily Miami through and through. And I think he really would love to play with Bam Adebayo and Jimmy Butler and be coached by Eric Spoelstra and have that head leadership of a Pat Riley. But yeah,
that's
Minnesota. Yeah, he did, which I was very shocked about.
Yeah,
he didn't play. He didn't. Yeah,
you would think that was a weird time. I think that was right before LeBron, right? It was 2011, I believe. I'm looking at it.
Right. I think LeBron was there. Maybe, yeah, because
he was drafted by the Lakers, and then he was signed as a free agent by the Rockets. Went to the G League. Maybe. So on Basketball Reference, the Lakers traded him to the Heat, who later let him go for cash in 2009. So
that was
part of that Steph draft, I think. Yeah, 09. Yeah, so in my opinion, Minnesota would never, ever do that trade, just because Kyle Lowry and D'Angelo Russell are 2 bad contracts that are hard to move. And you're moving the guy who just turned you into a strong culture in Beverly for a guy in Kyle Lowry, who, yeah, in theory, he can do that. But Kyle Lowry's contract is worse value than Beverly. I think the Heat would have to give up assets to sweeten that for Miami, which they wouldn't have if they're moving for Donovan Mitchell, so to speak. Yeah, to me, Dallas, they're a threat just because they have Luka Doncic, but every team in the Western Conference has the star power too. And to me, without Jalen Brunson, they're going to be asking a lot out of Jaden Hardy, their undrafted player, to step into a rotational role, and they're going to have to use their mid-level exception, and just it's only $6 million on some guard who can bring some perimeter scoring. They get Tim Hardaway Jr. back, and I think that's a big get in shooting, but he's not the on-ball guy that they necessarily need to replace Brunson. Dinwiddie's good, but I view him as more of like a number 3 guard, not number 2. Yeah. So I feel like there's something lacking in Dallas. We haven't really touched on the Christian Wood fit. I think it's amazing. There's questions about his role defensively because In Houston, he never played relevant basketball. It's the first time for him. Congratulations for playing on a real NBA team. I think it's great he's going to get to play with Luka. He averaged 24 in the 7 games he played with Harden, so it's a good fit in the pick and roll. But in terms of the perimeter compliments when Luka's off the floor, I think for Dallas that's a huge issue. You can't have Luka doing everything for 39 minutes simply. So yeah, I mean, there's a massive hole there that Jalen Brunson is going to leave behind. But maybe he actually does end up staying there, and this segment will be scrapped. But to me, that's not happening. So I think there's just no possibility that with all the reporting. And the other trade I want to touch on is Jeremy Grant to Portland. They got Grant. They gave up very little, a protected first-round pick. I think for the Blazers, it was a good move. Like Christian Wood, he's on an expiring contract, and they're going to have to pay him a lot of money. And so the salary cap they've opened, a lot of that, if they want to re-sign Grant past the season, is going to be $20 million shelled out to a role player who I think is not as good as everyone would assume when looking at his numbers. He put up great scoring stats in Detroit, but that doesn't mean anything. In Denver, he was fine, but that didn't stop Donovan Mitchell in the bubble because he was still giving all those guys buckets for the most part. The only reason he slowed down in that series because he got tired down from the insane load he had without Bojan Bogdanovic and Mike Conley for part of it. I said to myself, Jeremy Grant is a fine role player. To me, he's like a $14 million a year guy, not 22 or 23. And I think he thinks more of himself than what he actually is in the NBA. Because to me, Denver got better with Aaron Gordon. And I think Aaron Gordon's worth like 16 million, 17. He got 18, 22. I'm not paying Jeremy Grant over $20 million a year. It's a good move. I think good thing for Damian Lillard to get an upgrade over Al-Farouq Amini and Mo Harkless. But I think you guys, would you agree with me on that? Jeremy Grant's maybe a little bit overrated if you're looking at just the stats.
Yeah, 100%. I think while the trade does help Portland out a bit, I mean, perimeter defense wise, it gives Dame another scoring weapon out there with him. But overall, it's a 1-year deal. He's at best maybe a rental. I think Detroit got rid of him for the same reason. They didn't want to pay him the big bucks. So let's get something for him while we can. So unless this guy really comes out there and dazzles up in Portland, this is just a short-term rental for Portland.
Yeah, I completely agree. I don't see it.
Yeah, and speaking of Dame, we've all talked about this. I'm a big proponent of Dame staying in Portland because I'm of the belief that the grass is not always greener on the other side. We've discussed this. To me, Portland, with the young core they've built, they can still move Dame at the deadline next year. And if I'm a team like Philadelphia that maybe wants to move off Harden and I'm willing to give up assets, I would certainly trade 3 first-round picks for Damian Lillard to get the last good years out of him. What do you guys think is the number one destination for Dame? I think for me, it would be playing with Embiid in Philly.
I mean, that was the one that I was eyeing before the James Harden deal. I don't know if they have those assets that you speak of because they kind of
Tyrese Maxey is almost unmovable at this point.
They're not. I think Maxey. I think their untouchables are Maxey and Embiid.
Yeah, Maxey was so good. I would not move him.
There's been talks of them trading Thibault. To clear space for PJ Tucker. And I just saw a report that apparently 76ers may trade Tobias Harris.
Yeah,
I mean, up a big contract. I mean, I don't know. James Harden did decline his player option. So
he resign there though. He's not leaving.
He could unless they do like kind of like a. I don't think James Harden would want to go to Portland. That's the thing. So I don't know. I think Dame is kind of. It sucks because I think he might be stuck because it's not really looking like there's a championship contender that can give up the assets to get him, and I think that really sucks for him because I think Dame is going to regret staying in Portland if he ends up staying in Portland for the rest of his career. I think he's going to regret not trying to go out and see if he can join a better team and win a championship.
You know, it makes me laugh. You said the grass isn't always greener on the other side, but is the grass even green for him in Portland, man?
No.
I will say,
what is holding him there besides loyalty? That's the team that drafted him there. I mean, they're paying him big bucks, but as far as the accolades go, you know, getting an opportunity to play for an NBA Finals or just even contend for an NBA Finals, isn't that what you play for? And I don't feel like Portland has given him that opportunity at all. I mean, yeah, you had McCollum there, but what did they do when he was there? they couldn't build around that unit. They couldn't build around. I don't think they're going to build around them now. I mean, yeah, they got their nice little rookie who seems like he's going to be a very talented young player. He's only 19 years old, but at most it's going to take maybe 2 to 3 years to really see him blossom and see him turn into the star that everybody projects him to be. So yeah, I'm with you guys. Philly might be the best destination. I would love to see him pair up with LeBron at some point, but that seems more and more unlikely. Would love to see him pair up with KD in Brooklyn, but I don't think Kyrie's going to end up in Portland. So I'm with you. I do think he ends up staying in Portland. And like Brandon said, I think it's just sad because we should be seeing this guy playing on the biggest stage often. Come on, man. I miss Dame time. I miss seeing us check our watches, man. Like seeing him get stuck in Portland, we're going to be talking about this guy to our kids like, man, if only. If only. It's just a sad truth.
Yeah, it's been LaMarcus Aldridge left in 2014.
Yep.
So Dame has not played with an all-star in 8 years, and we're going on 9. So for his entire peak, he's never in the Western Conference had that complimentary guy.
CJ didn't make an all-star team?
No, he was what I would call before. He was you're saying there's the difference between you guys are superstars, your star, your all-star. I think CJ's in that tier below where he's just like a high-level starter to like a 20-point per game guy.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think he's an all-star caliber player.
Yeah, I think he's a very good shot blocker for a 6'3" guard. I'll give you that.
I don't think he's a number 2, and that's what Portland was asking him to be. I think he's a number 3, especially because that Dame and CJ are on the smaller end, and they're not very good defenders. That's really what they didn't have that guy there that could bring that defensive imposing nature with offense ability.
In the Eastern Conference, he could be a low-level all-star, kind of like a Jared Allen, like the last guy to make the team. But in the Western Conference, he was certainly not. He's already 32. I guess that's to be expected. He was drafted in 2012 or 2013. Excuse me, the Giannis class. But yeah, I think we could all agree on Portland's. It's sad that we're probably going to look back at Dame's career and see a player that watched Dirk Nowitzki come into the league, Kobe, all of those legends that stayed with their teams. They could have requested a trade. Kobe did, and ultimately they got to see their labor, the fruits of it all come out. They got championships. And for Dame in Portland, while they've built themselves a very quality young core, Anthony Simons, I think, will be a star. By the time those guys hit their ceiling, it's going to be too late. And Justice Winslow, Josh Hart, these wing players are cool. They're good. But in the Western Conference, you need the number 2. You need Dame. Like, if anything, could you imagine? We've seen with Steph Curry, Chris Paul, Russell Westbrook, Kyrie Irving, all of these Hall of Fame level guards get to play as number 2. With Damian Lillard in his prime after Aldridge left, we have never seen that. And odds are, if he stays in Portland, we never will. It's sad.
It is.
What if he was playing off of Kevin Durant? Imagine. He's, in all due respect to Kyrie, he's available. He has had abdominal surgery, but for the most part, he's been reliable. He's been one of the more durable guards for his size.
It's very similar to to what Chris Paul was before he got to Phoenix. Like, we were all crying. We were like screaming at the mountaintops because back then, he was playing for the Hornets. He was basically all they had. They weren't going to do much. The trade to the Lakers got annulled, and that sent him to the Clippers. And the second best player was Blake Griffin. I don't think that, I guess you would call it at the time the big 3. I don't know, DeAndre Jordan, but I think they had a solid team. I just don't think they had that guy that could be like, go get me a bucket, Then he went to Houston. He had James Harden for that 2 years. And I think I think he really started showing, like, listen, if I have this guy next to me who's on my level or better than me, we can do something. And we saw that. They took Golden State to Game 7, and he obviously missed that game, and then they lost. And then you saw what he did with OKC. I mean, that team, nobody expected them to make the playoffs, and then that guy, he was able to carry them to a playoff berth. And then he finally got into Phoenix, and then you saw what he did. He finally broke through, got to the NBA Finals, ran into Giannis, who was on a mission. But it's sad because I don't want to look back at Damian Lillard and be like, man, dude, was the money the most important thing? I think he can like speak to Carmelo about that. Like, ask Carmelo Anthony, was the money really the right option? Looking back at hindsight, or should you have joined Dwayne Wade and LeBron in Miami?
In terms of money, I mean, Portland's not gonna lead to as much financial status as a New York or a bigger market, so you may get more money in an actual contract offer, but in terms of the sponsorship and all that stuff, the brand, the image, you'll be worth more in a bigger market. So that stuff, I think, gets nulled out in a way. The NBA draft was June 23rd. We're not gonna dive into the entire thing, but I do want to say, I want to discuss the top picks of the draft. First overall, Paulo Banchero went to Orlando. For the Magic, this was the first time they deviated from their ways of going with the lanky and athletic wing defenders and the guys with defensive potential. They wanted the guy with the most offensive tools. Paulo Banchero reminds me of a little bit of Blake Griffin, less athleticism, but in terms of the handle, the post moves, to just be an absolute weapon. The playmaking for a 6'11" big that can handle. He can shoot it a little bit. I thought for the Magic, they got themselves the blue chip offensive player to pair with John Isaac come back from return, and Franz Wagner. And I think that forward combination of all those guys, with Wendell Carter Jr. at center, is going to be a lot of fun to watch next year. And Orlando, we're going to get to in a separate episode. They could be a playing-in contender next year. No doubt about it to me. Second overall pick, we got Chet Holmgren to the OKC Thunder. I thought it was a terrific move for them to get a lob finisher and a three-point floor spacer, which they haven't had off of Josh Giddey. Add that component with all defensive potential, an absolute game-changing rim protector that was getting dropped a few times in some clips I've seen. Some pretty bad moments in space, but overall as a capable outside defender in space, I thought Chet was the proper fit for them, and definitely a much-needed addition to that young core. And the third overall pick, Jabari Smith to Houston, the best three-point shooting prospect we've seen since Michael Porter Jr. He may even be a better one in the league. To me, the Rockets got themselves one of the most prolific outside perimeter players we've seen at in the front court. And you paired that with Jalen Green and all of those things in Houston. They got Alperen Şengün, a little Boris Diaw, and him. There's a lot of unique abilities in that offense between the athleticism, the shooting. And I think for the Rockets, they're a league pass team where you watch them next season and you say to yourself, they've got a little bit of everything here. They're not really missing one skill. Later on in the draft, they would address backup point guard by taking Ty Washington, who they acquired the 29th pick, a guard from Kentucky. Now, I don't know about you guys. Can you name me a Kentucky guard that hasn't worked out in the NBA? Because I would say just about all of them do. It's crazy. When you think about it, all of them hit, literally.
I think those twins didn't work out.
Yeah, they weren't even first-round picks, though. You have Shea, Jamal, D-Book, John Wall, Tyrese Maxey. There's like half a dozen at least that come off the top of your head, and then you realize you've forgotten like 5 or 6 others. I think Ty for Houston, he reminds me a little bit of D'Angelo Russell. He's only like 6'3". He's 20 years old already, which is older for a guy who was just a freshman in college. I think for the Rockets, they were massive draft winners. And the other draft winner to me was New Orleans. They were going to take Dyson Daniels with the 8th overall pick. He reminds me a little bit of Lonzo Ball and Derek White, but he's bigger. He's 6'8". He can't really shoot it, but the Pelicans had the best shooting coach maybe in the NBA in Fred Vincent. And I say to myself, if he gets in the lab with Dyson, a 19-year-old guard who has the defensive makeup to be an absolute wrecking ball of Herbert Jones, that's an amazing addition for the Pelicans. And for David Griffin, their GM, he may have found himself their next second-round steal, and E.J. Liddell out of Ohio State. Basically a jack-of-all-trades wing player that not only fell outside the lottery because he wasn't a lottery pick, or even the top 20, he fell out the first round to pick 41. I said to myself, he reminds me a little bit of Grant Williams, a 6'7" wing that's really smart. He's improved as a shooter into a 37% guy, but he's also really athletic. And that's the biggest thing with him. He was averaging over 2 blocks in his third year at Ohio State. He was basically told going in, he had to improve as a perimeter defender. He did that. He grew his three-point shot, and they could do just about everything for New Orleans to offer them more front court depth with Larry Nance. Larry's going to have a lower responsibility because they got Jackson Hayes, they got Herbert Jones, there's so much versatility for the Pelicans. They add in these young guys. And I think for their GM, David Griffin, not only did he save his job, we're looking at that trash team they threw out in 2021 of Lonzo and Eric Bledsoe in the backcourt. Neither guard could run a pick and roll. And you have Steven Adams next to Zion, 0 floor spacing there. That team is so poorly built. And within the last year, David Griffin has made the Pelicans one of the most exciting teams with one of the brightest futures in the next 2 years. Whew. I think the Pelicans hit it out the park again for a second year in the draft. So kudos to those teams. Now I want to hit you guys a little trivia after we touched on the drafts. We were talking about Jimmy. We're talking about a lot of stars in this episode. This guy is a Miami Heat legend, and this edition of NBA trivia.
Oh.
Okay, so he's from the 2011 NBA draft as a Heat legend. He won the last 7 picks of the first round. One of the first round's last 7 picks.
Wait, are you saying legend sarcastically?
I'm not going to elaborate. When I say legend, you'll know his name. Like, he's known. The reason why is because he's been to the finals.
Reason why what?
The reason why he's known is because he's been to the finals.
Yeah, well, if he was drafted into 11, he was on the
He was drafted by the Bulls at 22 years old.
He was drafted by the Bulls, but he's
at 22.
He didn't play for the Bulls, though, right?
I can't say. I would give it away.
I don't think it. But I feel so stupid because I'm not getting it. But
So he was on the Miami team in 2011, or he was drafted in 2011?
All I'm saying is that I can't elaborate because I'll give you the answer. But he's a Miami Heat legend from the 2011 NBA draft. That's all I'm going to tell you. I can't tell you anything beyond this. He's one of the last 7 picks of the first rounds. And he was drafted by the Bulls at 22.
That's Jimmy Butler.
No.
No, because if he would.
He went to Cleveland State University.
Oh, I feel so stupid. Oh.
Big.
I'm blank right now.
2011 NBA.
He's a point guard.
Age for.
He wore number 30.
It's not Norris Cole. Is it Norris Cole?
Yes.
Now, you know what? Now that pisses me off. I'm gonna tell you why. Because the first time he said that, I was like, that's why I asked, are you saying legend sarcastically? Because Norris Cole was the first person that came to my mind. The very first. But now you got me thinking legend. I'm like, who the hell is a legend on this team outside of LeBron and Wade and Bosh?
I don't.
Norris Cole.
Why'd you say legend?
Yeah, exactly. That you threw us off.
Because they'll forever remember Norris Cole when you think of those teams. With Mario Chalmers.
I mean, he's not one of the first people you think of, but
When you think past the big 3, you're right. When you think past
when you think the big 3, you think of Ray Allen, Mike Miller, Shane Battier.
Well, Shane was only there for 2 years.
Yeah,
Shane,
but
Norris Cole isn't the first player to come to mind.
But John, it was only a 4-year experiment, so 2 years is 50%.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, Norris got there in 2011.
Norris.
I think of Mario Chalmers way before I think of Norris Cole.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just gonna say I feel like I was
think
robbed.
next.
I feel like I was
I
robbed.
was robbed. You threw me off, John. I hope you have another one because I feel terrible ending this on that.
I have another one. It's actually a player that was traded for Norris Cole on draft night because, like I said, Norris Cole was drafted by the Chicago Bulls. So I'm gonna give you one more player. I will apologize. The Miami Heat legend thing. When I was writing this in my notes, I said to myself, Norris Cole's a legend. You know?
No,
He's not.
sorry. I want to say Udonis Haslam's a Miami Heat legend. Okay,
Yeah,
that makes a lot of
you're
sense.
correct.
But Norris Cole is not.
A sarcastic legend, to be sure. Like
Yeah.
a joking manner. Udonis, Shane Battier, Joel Anthony, even's another sarcastic. There was many sarcastic legends in that team. Birdman. That team was filled with so many legendary characters, though. Whatever.
There was.
So we got part 2. This is guessing who Norris Cole is traded for. So it's traded for ... who edition. Norris Cole. Who? Norris Cole edition. There you go.
Who?
So he is from Bosnia and Herzegovina. That's where he's from. That's his home country.
Oh my god.
He was the 31st pick by the Heat in 2011. He spent his first 3 years playing in Turkey and was then traded for cash to the Brooklyn Nets.
I feel like when you say it, I'm going to know him, but I'm not going to be able to get it.
And he came to the Nets in 2014-15. He stands at 6'7". He made the all-rookie team.
Where's he from?
Bosnia and Herzegovina.
Trying to think of all those names now. Ends in a titch.
Now, he would then be traded to the Wizards for Jared Allen, the pick that became.
Where's he at right now?
Yeah, you know, if I told you the team, you would know it pretty quickly. I gave you his height listing at 6'7". He's an overseas player that's from Bosnia and Herzegovina. And you would then know his exact age because he's from the 2011 draft and spent 3 years playing in Turkey. Some people may mix up his name with another NBA player.
Is it one of the Bogdanovich or one of them or
One of the Bogdanoviches?
yeah?
Well, you got to guess the player. There's 2 of them.
There's Boban and Bojan, right? Are those the first 2 names?
There was Bojan and Bogdan?
Bogdan.
Bogdan's on the Hawks, and Bojan's on the Jazz. Now, this player would also then sign in Indiana after, how long was it? After 1 year in Washington. He spent 2 years in Indiana and would help take LeBron James to 7 games in the 2019 playoffs in the first round.
Play for that Lakers team? The championship?
So you played for the... I'm really going to give it away now. I can't give away the last time. I'll tell you what team he's on.
Dude, I got no thoughts in my head, so I don't know if you're going to give it away.
You said his name, bro. Oh,
I did?
Yes!
Wait, what?
You said his name, bro.
I didn't know one of the Bogdanoviches plays for the Lakers.
I never said that. Here's the thing. He started with the Nets. He went to Washington for a year, then went to Indiana for 2.
Okay. I thought all I said were the Bogdanoviches were the only names I said. I said another name.
Cut the trivia from the tape. I would have had the Norris Cole.
Okay, he plays for the Jazz.
Yeah, so it's
You have to guess his name.
yeah, but it's Bojan Bogdanovic.
Yep.
You just said it wasn't one of the.
I said you had to say his name. You said, is it one of the Bogdanoviches? I said you had to say their name. Because it's not one of the Bogdanoviches. It's Bojan. Yeah, I thought that was a cool one, man. It was in Bosnia and Herzegovina.
What's his last name?
Bogdanovic.
He played for the Lakers?
I never said.
Oh, he never said
Lakers, bro.
I thought he just said he helped LeBron lead the Lakers to the championship.
He helped the Pacers take LeBron to Game 7.
I didn't.
In 2019.
Okay,
LeBron didn't make the playoffs in 20.
That's my bad. I misheard you.
Oh, I made a mistake. It was 2018. He took LeBron to 7 games because in 2019 LeBron was not missing the playoffs. So I made a mistake there. So I repeat that for TikTok. In 2018, he took LeBron James to 7 games in the first round. Yeah, Justin, you had a public service announcement for Knicks fans, I believe, if you want to share it.
All right. Like I told you guys before, I'm going to take a page out of Aaron Rodgers' playbook, and I'm going to tell my fellow Knicks fans. Actually, give me a second just so I can write it out for them so they can see this. Very loud and proud. You guys see this?
Relax.
Yeah.
I see it.
RELAX. Relax, guys. This is the very first time in a long time then we can say the Knicks actually have a direction. Now we don't know the direction, but we know that the front office actually does have one.
No.
Is still here. Leon Rose is still here. Maybe he'll start talking to media at some point. But we have a plan. We have young talent. RJ's going to take the keys to the kingdom. Maybe he'll be averaging 25 a game for the whole season. IQ might step up. Let's think glass half full instead of glass half empty. Let's start being more positive about our team. Let's start actually having some hope. Cut it out with the hashtags. No more bing bong. No more Knicks tape. No more we here. Let's just enjoy our Knicks. Let's just have some fun with it. There's a lot to be excited about. Let's enjoy what we can. That's the best way to endure a Knicks season. Just try to enjoy it. Find the little things to make you happy. And I found mine.
What was that? Obi
Zach.
Toppin averaging 38 points in the last 2 games of the year when you guys were eliminated from the playoffs.
Bro, listen, that was good to see. That's something to feel optimistic about. I'm pumped up, man. Knicks fans, you should be pumped up too. Obi's gonna step up. He's gonna have a better year. Quentin Grimes will be healthy, God willing. He'll have a great season. We'll see the direction with IQ. If Jalen Brunson is in the fold or not. Mitch is gonna get re-signed. If I'm not mistaken, I believe he already did. But I could be wrong.
There's talks. 4 years, 60 million.
Yeah, 4 years, 60 million. We're bringing Mitch back in the fold. Listen, there's direction, there's purpose, there's a reason to have a little bit of hope for the first time.
And maybe Tom Thibodeau will play Miles McBride. That would be cool.
That would be nice too. That would be very nice. But yeah, that's my PSA. Love you, Knicks fans.
So now we're getting to that. That's how you know we at the end of the episode. Thank you guys so much for watching episode number 4 of the Wise Guys podcast. My name is John Torrelli with Brandon Capizzello and Justin Ray. And as always, we'll see you next time.
Stay classy.